Hi, I'm Dakota Lane. I am a undergraduate at Loyola University in Chicago. My pronouns are she and they. And I am an undergraduate student studying environmental science and environmental communication.
Hi, I'm Vashawn Wright. I'm a postdoctoral investigator at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. I'm a geophysicist and a rock physicist. My pronouns are he and him, and we're here to talk about you. And I'm going to ask you some questions, and you'll answer them. And the goal is to talk about why do we use pronouns. And so maybe I'll let you start. Why is it important to include pronouns in our name tags or just use them?
Yeah, it's really important to first off make sure that we use those pronouns so that when people come and are speaking about this, that of course they're not misgendering us. And pronouns are integrated into English language, the foundations of it. When referring to anything, you're going to use a pronoun, whether it be, it or they or he or she or some other form of it. It's, you use a pronoun and you want to make sure that you're using the right ones. So to help with that and make sure you're using the right ones and not potentially misgendering anyone, we use pronouns in name tags and on the ends of emails and things where people can easily see what ours are.
I'm going to sort of play the devil's advocate here, not because I'm indeed the devil's advocate, but because I think it will get a little bit more or move the conversation a little bit further along. So, I can imagine somebody saying, well, aren't people's pronouns obvious? And what do you say to that?
No, of course. Nobody's pronouns are necessarily obvious. Pronouns do not equal or do not give away someone's explicit gender. Although we usually associate he with male-identified people and she with female-identified people, that's not always the case. Even with clothing, dresses are typically associated with female styles and female wear. But that doesn't mean that a man could not wear a dress, whether, you have beliefs that they shouldn't or should. But yeah, no, because there is no association and no explicit hard association and meaning towards he and she, which again are just aesthetic uses, you can't really assume someone's pronouns, or at least you shouldn't. Now, the pronouns that you assume may be correct for the person, especially if they are cis-identified, but that doesn't mean that's always going to be the case.
And then what if somebody says to you, well, what if I don't care about what my pronouns are? Why should I use pronouns still?
Well, again, we're really talking about using pronouns for other people and showing respect for other people. You using your own pronouns and making sure your pronouns are well known can help people who don't necessarily or are typically excluded because of their pronouns feel more comfortable and more safe in whatever space you both may be in. Especially for non-binary people who use pronouns of they or some neo-pronoun, they may not feel comfortable advertising that if they don't know this is a safe space. So by you saying what your pronouns are, whatever they may be, it's going to indicate and make them feel a lot safer.
Got it. So a lot of it is about making everyone feel more safe, especially people who are not gendered or identified.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying? So I noticed that there are what's called gender neutral pronouns. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, no. So gender neutral pronouns are pronouns that are specifically used for people who don't necessarily identify with either female or male or something not on that binary. And And they're exactly what they sound like. They are gender neutral. So that's they. Some people use the. And there's a few other neo pronouns like Z that people use, but they is usually the most common one. But again, that's usually for people who identify as non-binary, or people who don't necessarily want to give away um, their gender up front.
Are you suggesting that I write down my pronouns? Is that the suggestion here? And are you suggesting that I write down my pronouns to make a more inclusive environment?
Yeah, definitely. Putting it in your Twitter bio or writing it at the end of your email signature are two really good places to put them. Not even Twitter bios, just any bio, Instagram or any social media. But I found putting them at the end of my emails as well as putting them in my Zoom name has helped a lot with making people feel more included, and again, feeling safe.
Let's suppose I don't know what your pronouns are. How do you suggest going about asking people for their pronouns?
It's of course, read the room and see how comfortable the person feels. I usually will ask them individually away from a group setting what their pronouns are. And just, specific, just ask, I just want to clarify and make sure, I'm using the right pronouns. What are yours? Is a great way to say it. And another great way that a lot of people don't think about is simply listening to close friends or close relatives of that person, what pronouns they're using. Because typically, of course, they would respect those pronouns of that person. So listening, in a group setting of what pronouns they're using for a specific person can also be a little bit of a key indicator of what those pronouns may be if you don't already know.
What if I make a mistake though and just use the wrong pronouns?
I think a lot of trans people can agree with me on the fact of I'd rather someone try and make a mistake than not try at all. You make a mistake in any aspect, in any facet of your life, and it's no big deal. For trans people, it can feel very demeaning when it's done on purpose. But we understand that cis people are misgendered sometimes with pronouns by accident, and you just quickly use the correct pronoun and move on. So it just usually it's just no more than a tongue twist. So don't think that much about it. If you realize that you've used the wrong set of pronouns, just correct yourself and keep it moving. Don't draw attention to it.
People might think that the language is changing and things are changing so much, and they might think about this thing called they're being accurate with it. So how do you suggest that I can improve my pronoun accuracy?
Oh, okay. Well, depending on the person, especially with, I've heard, although my pronouns are she and they, and most people defer to she, some people have had trouble using they with me. And, to those people, it helps to learn or get used to a set of pronouns if you're not familiar with them, if you describe the person in your head. And you say, they are, a Black woman. They have curly hair. They have straight hair. They are wearing the color yellow. And practicing in that way can be a very simple and a very easy way to kind of ingrain a person's pronouns.
And it's not grammatically incorrect to use they to refer to one person or perceive to one person.
And I mean, some people will say, that it is, and it's definitely not. If you found a wallet on the street, you might say, someone forgot their wallet. And we use they like that in many, many, many scenarios that you wouldn't even think about. It's just usually that, you're using it and you don't know the gender of the person. Which if you don't know someone's pronouns, it is acceptable to refer to them as they until you do. seeing that is the most commonly used gender neutral pronoun. But always ask, of course. But yes, no, it's definitely acceptable and well defined into English grammar to use they singularly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so for you, you have two, she and they. What is the preference when somebody gives you more than one set of pronouns?
Ask the person if they like one more than the other. If they don't, use whatever you feel comfortable with. Um, just make sure the person is okay with whatever pronouns you're using, of course. But, I usually don't care which one, and people use both she and they with me, and it doesn't bother me. And of course, that's from my experience. But for the most part, um, if someone is giving you a set, they probably don't mind being called one or the other. They may have a preference and you should ask for it. But most likely you can use, whatever set they, specified.
And so for you, you're Black. Your pronouns is she and they. Yeah, no, I am too. You're in environmental science. So we're studying the earth. And there's not a lot of Black people in the discipline, or relatively speaking. And there's also not a lot of Black people who are they themselves not cisgendered. And so there is this intersectionality to your identity. And what have your experiences been like dealing with that, and how important is it really for inclusivity and diversity and feeling a part of the geoscience, environmental science community?
That's a great question. I would say, of course, it's integral to anything that I do. I think one of the biggest ways um, that my identity has probably come up within the professional field is, of course, with my hair. Um, for the simple reason of, it's not typically deemed that traditional Black hairstyles are deemed as professional. Um, and for someone like me, when entering these fields, number one, is already judged kind of as an unprofessional. It can also add hardship when I go and I say, oh, these are my pronouns and things like that. Depending on, how understanding the person is, or how educated, should I say, the person is on trans issues. Because it seems as if, people will sometimes look at me and say, not only is she, unprofessional, she's also quite demanding, or something along the lines of, that. And that can be very frustrating, and it can also be very frustrating considering the fact that a lot of our jobs are institutional based, of trying to find a good fit for me, not only making sure that I will be racially accepted and not tokenized as a racial minority for a larger institution, but that I will also, that my gender identity will also not be discriminated against. So, it can sometimes be a real chessboard. And I've gone through quite a few institutions in the area and labs in the area of Chicago, to find my lab homes within Loyola and actually within U Chicago as well. But it can definitely feel like it can definitely feel a little hopeless at times, although that's never the case. And I think that's also why representation matters so much. Just because if you see someone like you doing it, you know that it is at least possible. So yeah, no, those two, identities of myself definitely intersect in ways that I never thought they would, especially professionally. Um, And I'm just happy that I have been given the opportunity and the strength as well to kind of combat some of those issues, but also to truly find where I am accepted and appreciated.
Oh, that's beautifully said. Dakota, thank you for giving us wisdom, and I hope our audience gets a lot from this. Spend time thinking about how these issues affect how included people feel and how accessible our spaces are, and especially people who are Black and Brown and Indigenous, people who've been historically excluded. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you spending the time doing this. And it seems like one simple thing people can do is, one, begin to learn more, but also get rid of the assumption of what someone's gender is and make it commonplace to include your genders on your emails, bios, social media bios, and introduce yourselves, saying what your gender is. And I've seen at some geoscience event there are stickers that you can choose to put on and say, this is my pronouns. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
And absolutely no problem. Happy to be here and happy to be of help.